for the John Birch Society. So I've been on staff since 1990. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. And probably since July of 2011, a year ago, a little more than a year ago, I've had the privilege and honor of doing almost 70, maybe a little over 70 presentations on the subject of Agenda 21. And I've learned a whole lot since the first one I gave. I'm learning from people in the audience and from my travels. I visit town halls and city halls and look for evidences of Agenda 21 in these towns. I've met legislators, I've met selectmen, and folks, we've got a lot of people pretty upset about this. A year ago, there was very little, maybe a year and a half ago, very little opposition. And just to give you a quick illustration, New Hampshire, a year ago, there was almost no opposition to Agenda 21. Well, back in September of this year, in Rochester, New Hampshire, they were voting on an aspect of it. There were 100 people in the city hall. It was an evening, not a presentation, but a vote. The only person that testified was somebody from HUD who was pushing this. And people were in the hallways with signs, no holds barred. You know, Agenda 21 is evil and so forth. And I interviewed one man. I said, "How long have you known about this?" "Oh, a long time." He said, 6 months. See, so it was very gratifying to think that our efforts played a key role in that. And I've met legislators, and I've known a lot in New Hampshire, and they've resubmitted a bill for this session to get out of Agenda 21. So I think we should begin with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. I'm going to ask John of Oath Keepers to come on up and do that.
Well, I'm key with the pledge.
All right. Well, let's all stand, and I'll give a short invocation, if that'll be okay. And Heavenly Father, we thank you for this freedoms that we still enjoy to come together, and we ask that you will bless this time together. We ask that you give us ideas and suggestions, and that you help us reach out to many more people on this important issue. And we ask for your travel mercies on the way home, and we ask this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
And the flag.
I'll kind of lead from the rear here, unlike the federal government. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Kip Webster just for a few minutes. Kip is the regional, I should say, coordinator, full-time field rep for the John Birch Society in New Jersey, a good chunk of New York, Long Island and New York City and a few counties north. And he's got Connecticut and a chunk of Pennsylvania. And one thing, if I ever leave the staff of the John Birch Society, retire, and what did you do to really advance the mission of freedom? Hiring Kip Webster would probably be the first thing, because he's the best guy I've ever had. He usually gives me a little stipend to say this, but actually he's the best guy I've ever had the privilege of working with, and I'm very pleased that he's on staff. And just to turn it over to Kip very quickly.
Thank you, Al, for your kind words. It doesn't hurt as much to pay you when I know I'm getting a good introduction like that. As a field coordinator, one of my duties is to organize chapters and create activity in an area, and that's something we are really good at. In the past year, we did 62 information tables at street fairs, county fairs, gun shows. We probably logged close to 2,000 man-hours of volunteers handing out material. But that's the way this job gets done. Then we do follow-up speeches, like bringing Hal in to do Agenda 21, or John McManus in to talk about the Council on Foreign Relations, or any of our other speakers. But the whole thing is to tie all this activity in to educating people so we can make better decisions about who we elect. And in order to do that, we have to have influence. And by building our numbers and having influence at town meetings, state legislators, and congressional elections, all of this stuff, is why we have to build and grow. And one of the functions of this activity we're doing today is to not only have a workshop to show people how to do it, but also to organize. And we need to organize a couple more chapters of the John Birch Society in Connecticut. which would be a big help to me in organizing these events. We're working with groups like Oath Keepers and other freedom groups. We need people to be liaisons, working with these people. I've established some really good working relationships with. But as my area grows and expands, I have less time to do the individual work, which chapter leaders, section leaders, and volunteer members could do. So with that, keep in mind, we're going to be doing this workshop on Agenda 21, but let's also plan to build the whole structure of the society in this area so we can do more of these type of events, be more active and gain more influence, and that can come with getting more members to pitch in and help out. So thank you all for coming out, and we'll get started. We have a book table in the back. Anybody who's not a member that would like to join at the end of this event, come back and see me, and we can talk about that. We have plenty of books and material. Okay, I'll take over.
Okay. Now this is designed to be a sort of a brainstorming session, so it's not that I'm going to give a formal presentation. I want to get some ideas. But by the way, how many people have been sort of well up on Agenda 21? They've read the material and have a good working knowledge of the subject. Okay. You don't have to be a walking encyclopedia. I certainly am not. But even if you read one pamphlet, you probably know more than 95% of the people in your communities and your friends. How many people, we have people from most of the state, around the state of Connecticut. How many people on Facebook? Okay, we have a Facebook page, Friends of the, Connecticut Friends of the John Birch Society. I'd recommend that if you're not a member of that, join that, and we can use the information. Some of the things that we shared today can be, that could be where we, I also probably would want to recommend starting maybe a Facebook page, something like Property Freedom, something like Fighting Agenda 21 in Connecticut, or something like that idea. If anyone has any better idea, better.
It's already there.
What's it called?
Basically what you said.
Fighting Agenda 21 in Connecticut.
I'm pretty sure that's
okay.
what it's called. Somebody did it.
So those are the two Facebook pages that we should be using to connect with each other and also reach out to other people too. So, and by the way, I got one person taking notes. If I could have a few other people, and then we could, you know, type it up in Word, what have you, and then share it with each other. Would we object if we establish a email list of people who signed up today, that we keep in touch with each other, share ideas and success stories and things like that? That's good. Yeah, let me just make some recommendations for material, since some of you may not be up on it as much. There's a great little 20-minute DVD. They're on the back table. I think they're what, Kip, $1 a piece? $1.50, $2? Yeah, they're $1 a piece. This is also on YouTube, and I'll give you links to it, because we're going to be using cyberspace a lot too to advance the mission. And we got a little pamphlet here. I have a lot of them, and if you want to take a handful, take a batch, just make a small donation to help, so I can get more printed up. This is a little trifold that we leave around in our travels, town halls, city halls, places where there's literature, libraries. How many people have a local library? Everybody, right? How many people go in there on a regular basis? Leaving off information like this. And not as many hands, right? Yeah, because the folks on the other side do all the time, because I'm in these libraries and I see it. So we need to use these libraries as where we'll leave information as well. So please, activists, always have material with them. It's not just something we do, it's just once in a while. I don't suggest that you walk into the library and leave a big stack, you know, because who knows, it may be grabbed. But a small handful, you go in there once a week. That's what we do. Laundromats, any places where people are there reading something, and especially by a college. And if you live near a college, you can go in those universities and they have student inboxes, and they have organizations, they have inboxes, and just hit them. You get to know some of these people. Anyway, let me make, I mentioned the DVD. This is an incredibly good reprint that was done in the New American back in February of last year, February 2011. Also up on cyberspace, where you can share this information. And I'll tell you what happened. I PDF'd this back when I first got it, probably February, maybe March. And I put a link to my Scrib page, which I'll be talking about. When you put stuff up on Scrib, you can link it to your Facebook, right? And every town, most towns have a Facebook page. That's an official town Facebook page. Most towns have weekly newspapers. So if they don't run your letter to the editor, you can post it up on the Facebook page. It may take it down after a week or so. In most of the cases, they leave it up. Well, I thought, okay, Carver, Massachusetts, I live in Boston. Carver happened to be one of the 30 ICLEI, members of ICLEI, which are an entity which I'll talk about. Does anybody know what ICLEI is, by the way? The International Council for Local Environmental Initiative. It's sort of a subdivision of the UN that's designed, international organization that's set up to implement Agenda 21 at the town and city level around the world. And Connecticut has about, what, 10 ICLEI members, maybe 11. And that's easy to identify the ICLEI members. And but there's a lot of, Agenda 21 is also being built without any formal membership. But I thought, let's take them head on. So I looked at the list, and Carver, Massachusetts happened to be one of the towns that belonged to ICLEI. Used to, thanks in part to some of our efforts. So I got to the Facebook. I knew there was a weekly newspaper, Carver Reporter, and I put a link to it, and I suggested they do a full-scale investigation on ICLEI. Now, the average person, when they hear ICLEI, don't know what that means, so I wanted to get them, well, what's that? Get their curiosity. Then I went to Carver. I thought, see, does Carver have a Tea Party? They didn't have a Tea Party listed. And then I thought, okay, how about Republican Party? Now, keep in mind, it was a Republican that signed this, Agenda 21, a guy by the name of George H.W. Bush. But I thought that there are Republicans who are opposing this. So I thought this would be a good thing to... So I found a page, the Carver Republican group, and I clicked like. Sometimes you have to click like in order to post, and sometimes you don't, depending on the page. And I made a link to this article, and I suggested that, that they look into it. And a lady that runs the group, she got a hold of me within a couple of hours on Facebook. She said, I never heard of this, but it explains everything. She wanted to know why they wanted to put solar panels and why they were changing the zoning laws or trying to. She read this, and she became sort of a one-woman army, Lisa Martin. And if you see any article, anything on cyberspace, Lisa's name's going to be around that. And we had a meeting as a result of reading this article, and internalizing it and say, okay, we got to work on this. She had us speak, two of us speak in Carver that following that August, and within a few days of our meeting, ICLEI was kicked out of Carver. And they, in fact, the town selectmen just voted against a resolution. Every year they praise these resolutions praising the UN on UN Day. They voted it down. ICLEI is, Agenda 21 is still in town. The lady that brought it in was voted out as select, and the lady that replaced her is a total freedom-loving individual. When I was down there on Old Town Day, I think it was in late July, early August, I met this lady briefly at a presentation, but she just hugged me and she just thanked me for all, and I thought all I did was just post something and give a couple of presentations. They're the ones that did all the hard work there. So we also got an interview in the local newspaper, and that interview got more interest and what have you, and it was a relatively fair article. So doing something like that, and by the way, this lady who's also head of the Republican Party was the founder of the Plymouth County Tea Party, and as a result of that, it probably got me in front of maybe 10 to 12 different Tea Party groups around the state. So that one little cyberspace, that one little article, you might send stuff out all the time, you never know the impact you make. I get results from people all over the country. I even got someone sent me a Canadian $5 bill, a lady in New Brunswick, asking for one of these DVDs. Because when I post stuff, I tell people when I go fishing, I put worms on the hook. I don't just throw the worms and feed the fish or just dangle the hook. I want people to come to us. So if you're reluctant about putting your phone number or your contact information, use mine. I'd be happy to. I do this full time. I'll use KIPS. That's what we do for a living. You remember the Maytag repairman commercials back in the 80s and 70s? I'm giving you revealing my age a little bit. The guy just sat around and did nothing because Maytag was such a great product. They never broke down, right? So we don't want to be like the Maytag repairman, and thankfully we're not. So these are only what, $1, 50 cents a piece?
25 cents. 25
cents a piece. So take a little stack, and I recommend that you visit, not mail them, but visit your selectmen or your city alderman or whatever they call city councilors, and your mayor, and leave that one in their office. We have a little booklet here that came out with actually a guy that KIP recruited, Christian Gomez, young, very intelligent young man from New Jersey. He's now working at our headquarters in Appleton. He came up with this little booklet, and I'll ladies $1. Yep. And by the way, this is also on Script, on cyberspace. And it's like a nice little presentation. It goes into it. The map that we see a lot, the map that of the
Page 11.
page 11. Well, you got scripture and verse, huh? Yeah. This is the map they refer to as a wildlands map, and we have this on my PowerPoint presentation too. So some really good information on there. And I was at a meeting in Maine not too long ago. Actually, in August, I gave a presentation, and Rosa Corey, who's she's the head of Democrats against UN Agenda 21. So when we're talking to people who may not be completely freedom advocates, well, I'm a Democrat. Hey, there are some Democrats against this, and by the way, we're going to need them. You know, the last election determined that we don't necessarily have a majority point here, right? So we're going to need some of these folks. And she spoke to a few folk, to groups, and she had this book. And you know, today you won't see a lot of reference to Agenda 21 as it's being promoted. There's a reason for that. One of the disciples of Agenda 21, G. Gary Lawrence, who worked for the Clinton administration, he lives up in Seattle, Washington. He's saying to people, don't use this terminology because it gets people like us out to expose them. But this book came out in 1993, Rescue Mission, A Children's Guide to Agenda 21. And it was published in cooperation with the United Nations. And now we're told when we see articles that in the newspapers of liberal perspective, they'll say, or I should say anti-freedom perspective, they'll say things like this conspiracy theory, there was this UN Agenda 21. It was just a harmless little document that means nothing, right? Well, this came out right after, within a few months of Agenda 21, the meeting they had in 1992. And it was written by the children of the world, by the way, and in cooperation with the UN. So the connection to the UN is unmistakable, okay? You don't need to be a Sherlock Holmes to find that link. It's everywhere. Boutros Ghali, I should say Boutros Ghali, wrote the foreword to this. Now, when I got a copy of it, I went onto the internet. I did not see any PDF version, so I have 5 children, and since it was written by the children of the world, I asked my children, and one of them is behind the camera there, Nathaniel, I asked if I have their permission. And they said, oh, sure, you have the permission. So I put this in a PDF format, which I have available on, I got a lot of hits. It's available on Amazon for $1, or in some cases a penny. Although since I've been talking about it, a lot of them have been selling. But it's the most blatant propaganda I've seen in a long time, and I've seen a lot of it. It's disturbing. And this is the kind of thing that information that our children are getting. There's one that asked, I'm sure like a 10-year-old asked, why wasn't Agenda 21 more aggressive towards population control? That's on the mind of most 10-year-olds. I know that for a fact, right? It's nonsense. It's a lie. And they said, well, because of the Vatican and other influences, they had to sort of tone it down. Oh yeah, we want to wipe you all out, but we can't say that. But you know who did say it? Yeah, Jacques Cousteau. He made no bones about that at this conference. That's not in here. That quote's not in here, by the way. So this is something good to get. And people will say, oh, Agenda 21 is no such thing. Oh, well, you can actually download the whole document, 1,000 plus pages if you have the room on your computer, and 40 chapters. But I got a little synopsis of it, a little cliff note, and this I got on Amazon for a couple of dollars. And I quote very much the editor of the book when he talks about that Agenda 21 is basically transform society. It's the most aggressive thing that's ever been done, and it will have a profound impact on all human life and so forth. You know, and chapter 28, by the way, in Agenda 21, is how you implement it locally at the town and city level. So you can, there it is right there for people. So if you want to see how it's being operated in your town, pull out at 28. No, this is very interesting too. This is Orwellian. It is so Orwellian and anti-freedom. You know, anybody who comes up with something like this, it'd be good. It'd be a good fiction, good movie, like a horror movie. There's a chapter on women. Now, since they want to have what they call empowering women. Now, I'm not against. I mean, if we didn't have ladies in the freedom movement, we wouldn't have much of a freedom movement. But that's not what they mean. See, women have babies, and if you have more than 1.5, that's too many. You're not sustainable. So they want to kind of break up the family. what it says here, it's almost humorous. It tells about you. How many married men here we have here? Anyone that want to be married that hasn't married yet? So you should listen up too. No, okay. It says that you guys, and I'm married, and I actually have been doing this. We have to reduce the heavy workload of women and girl children. And it says that we should do more household chores. It actually says this, the sharing of household tasks by men on an equal basis. I think I might even do a little bit more than my wife, but that's because my poor wife works so hard. So guys, to be compliant, wash the dishes, take the trash out, and do the laundry and fold and all that good stuff. So you be compliant with Agenda 21. So I recommend that. I've got a few other things that are not directly related. I've got some old back issues of the New American, but they're like a new condition dealing with the UN. You know, they're $1 a piece. And I've got something called the police state issue. And inside is that infamous 7277. This is a State Department document during the Kennedy administration that talked about confiscating the firearms, our firearms, and having a world army. That's what this UN gun treaty is all about. And you know, this Agenda 21, the UN is the granddaddy. And our goal is to get us out of the UN. And it's interesting because we've been advocating that since our founding. And while we're still in the UN would want to be, wants to be a world government, and they're not there yet. I like to think that we played a key role in that. But a lot of folks will say, yeah, we don't like the UN, but they're harmless or they're useless. That's what we hear in certain circles. And we would present the case, all the horrible things they've done around the world and the influence they have. Now it's in your front yard. People see it now through Agenda 21. But it gives us a great opportunity to get rid of this rotten UN. Not directly related, but just came up, Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society, wrote a wonderful essay, What is Money? And I just reprinted it. They're $2, and I recommend those too. And see, I think that's about anything else. And Kip has a lot of good material out there I recommend that you take a look at. Okay, now, how many have been actively involved in opposing Agenda 21 in this room so far? I know Mary Smutnik, yeah, okay. How many people plan to be actively involved in Agenda 21? Hopefully, after this meeting, all of you will.
We don't have everybody's hand up.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So, like I said, I've been a full-time on staff since 1990 and probably a couple years after that. So I've been an activist a long time, a freedom activist. Because the word activist, you know, can mean anything, but we're freedom activists, constitutionalists. And so one of the first things I recommend are outreach activities. Now, you see this this was from my slide presentation, the last slide. This was a parade in Dedham, Massachusetts. Dedham happens to be a member of ICLEI, and they had a Flag Day parade. And by the way, they still use the U.S. flag. They don't have a UN flag yet, but that's probably in the works, right? And I live right next to my town, my section of Boston that butts Dedham. So I thought, boy, we need to do some outreach here. So I got a float in the parade. Didn't cost us a dime as far as I just filled out a form, and I borrowed a very unsustainable suburban vehicle from one of our members. And you see the signs, the banners. I had the banners made up. We have some really nice banners. You see the one in the back that's on the table. If your town isn't a formal member of ICLEI, you can cater to whatever you need. And we had on both sides of the vehicle. And that's an Uncle Sam, by the way. He actually is a member. That's a cutout of a friend of mine who's an Uncle Sam reenactor. And Fred couldn't make it to the event, so we had his cutout and put him in the passenger seat. And my good friend Tom Moore, who has some of you might have met Tom. He's a local Boston area historian. He wears a tri-corner hat. That's his thing. And we had myself and my family members and a few other folks in front, walking in front of the vehicle, handing out these things and handing out little brochures like this, which I'll talk about. And just had you know it, the vehicle in front of us was the Agenda 21 vehicle. Oh. And the truck was huge. It was very unsustainable. And they were advocating energy audits. And they had passed out these little carbon footprints. Right? You get a free or get a, we'll do a carbon, and it will be subsidized too. And there was one young lady, and there was a driver. I don't think the driver was just being paid to drive the van or the truck. And when she saw us out there, she got out busy. She got out busy working the crowd. But we had a lot of fun, And no question that and lots of people took pictures of this. We raised the visibility quite a bit. Now about in March or early April this year, we decided to have a free market cleanup in the same town. The oldest canal in the country runs through Dedham. Starts in Dedham, goes into Hyde Park in Boston. And parts of the canal are pretty dirty. So we had a nice little news releases in the local newspaper. And we finally got answers. We were not getting any answers about Ickley until we did this. You know, the media, you know, a little news release. And we found out that, that Dedham, that they hired an environmental officer. And some of this money they're hiring comes from the Obama bailout money, you know. So they give money to the town. And this young lady, and she's probably a very sincere activist. They don't hire people to do this kind of job, an ad in the paper, you know, you know how to use a computer and good on the phone. They hire activists to do these jobs. And she's from the town of Hingham, and she brought Ickley into Hingham, and she goes to Brookline, Massachusetts, where Michael Dukakis lives, and she brings Ickley into Brookline, and she's hired by the town of Dedham, and she brings Ickley into Dedham. So I asked her in an email, I said, how did Dedham join Ickley? And she says, well, that she and the Dedham Sustainable Development Advisory Board, that's the stakeholders, by the way, if you heard the term stakeholders. She appointed these people and this little volunteer board. She hires a teacher from a local prep school and a few other people who agree with her on global warming. They have a page on their town website. Make sure you visit your town websites and look for evidence. Look and see if it's the certain buzzwords: sustainable development, smart growth, planning. Look at your open space committee, see what they're doing, and see who's on there. But anyway, so she got back to me. She said she and the advisory committee simply went to the selectmen and suggested, strongly urged, or what have you, that they join Ickley. So it's like a rubber stamp. And now she's writing grants. Now that you belong to Ickley, she get federal money, she gets state money, and they also belong to what they call Green Communities, which is a Massachusetts-based Agenda 21 thing. And you won't see the word Agenda 21, but on the town Facebook, she's writing this article. We have to do this because of the rapidly diminishing fossil fuels and the imminent threat of global warming. See, that's the two bases, you know, and because of overpopulation and all these other things they use. So I wrote her an email. I said, well, you know, they just found enough gas, natural gas, which is a relatively clean carbon, to last about 500 years. And actually, I think we used to be like 60% to 50% dependent. We had to import, now we're only importing about 20%, thanks to all this gas and oil that they're using, right? And another interesting statistic that you can use too, and it's in a book called Power Hungry, that the United States is using a lot less energy, carbon energy in the last year and a half, last 10 years, about 1.5%.
Nobody has to drive to work anymore.
Because they don't have jobs, right? Yeah. And you think, oh, that's wonderful, that's great. But China, communist China, and India, and Brazil, and other countries have about doubled their use. And they're using mostly carbon, you know, coal and gas-fired plants. So the point is that if we shut down everything tomorrow, in the whole country, stop driving, stop manufacturing, which we don't do a whole lot of, unfortunately, anyway, then it would have almost no impact on something that doesn't exist anymore, even if there was man-made global warming. So all these things they're doing have very little impact. So these are the kind of things. Now, we did this outreach in Groton, and Mary was a big help to that, right? We did this one back in May, early May, I think, yeah. And it was on a Saturday. We spent 2 hours. You disappeared. We thought you got kidnapped or something. We couldn't find you.
I found a field full of parents watching their kids play lacrosse and soccer. Like 500 people. It was awesome.
So what we did was we had a few people hold up the banners, and we tried to find, we were in front of Town Hall. Now Groton is a city in a town, right? But we were in front of the town portion, right? And it was a pretty busy intersection. We had things to hand out. We had a news release to some local newspapers, and I thought we got one that was published. We met and some people saw Ickley, and he said, yeah, who is this Ickley guy? You know, yeah, let's kick this guy out. I thought, yeah, he's a no good bum. We need to kick him. So I'm sorry, if your last name is Ickley, you might have to change it, okay? We have nothing against you personally. It's this organization that we want to kick out. And we also, we have a good member of the Birch Society that actually manufactures vitamins in Connecticut, in Middletown. He has a printing press, and he likes to print things up for us. And he gave us, we can do this on a one-pager, it's a two-sided, you know. And we could cater it to whatever town or city, and I'd get, you know, 5,000, 1,000, or what have you. Now, let me give you some good examples. This one in Groton I thought was was a lot of fun, and we reached out to a lot of people. Nashua, New Hampshire, which is really the base of Agenda 21 in the state of New Hampshire, the so-called conservative state of New Hampshire. It's being pushed by Republicans in New Hampshire. A guy named Gregory, what's his last? Gregory Carson. He works for HUD, which is an arm of the federal government, Housing and Urban Development, started by Franklin Roosevelt. And he's supposed to be a good conservative. And you see, they've redefined conservatism to mean that you implement socialism, but a little more responsibly. You don't spend as much as the liberal, you see. That's how they do it. And he's going to towns, urging them to take the HUD money to start pushing this. It's called Granite State Futures, or Future. And anyway, somebody, I got a video clip, my son did a video clip of him, and I posted it up on YouTube, and somebody said, "How dare you? He's a good Republican." And I got back, he may be a good Republican, but he's not a good freedom lover or constitutionalist. So it's not just Democrats, it's Republicans too that are pushing this. Republicans are making all the money. The Democrats are the ideologues, and sometimes Democrats are making a lot of money too, and some of the Republicans are ideologues on this one. So yeah, so we did one in Nashua. We did that one in March, a very cold Saturday morning. We had about 12 to 15 people out. We had the union leader give us interviewed us. So it was interesting because the reporter called me a day before, and she said, "I've spoken to the Nashua aldermen." And one of them said they've never heard of Agenda 21 in Italy. They have now. That was the whole reason for it, right? The mayor of Nashua, one of our good friends, knows the lady personally. They went to school together. She's never heard of it. Well, now we have a reporter. We'll do a little, and all of a sudden we find out how long Nashua belonged and how wonderful they think it is in Nashua City Hall. So as a result of our outreach, we've got 2 articles in daily newspapers, and then an online, the Nashua Patch. By the way, this patch is an online service, and a lot of towns in Connecticut have the patches. Another way to get the word out, you can actually go on there, sign up. Just sign up for like an email and what have you, and post information on there. And so we got 3 articles as a result of about 2 hours of work. We passed out a lot of information, and we raised visibility. And that was the beginning of opposition to Agenda 21 in New Hampshire. Saturday and Sunday, this coming up, a lady who was motivated by this, she's actually moved up from New Hampshire, from Boston. She's doing outreach at there's a big holiday festival in Nashua on Saturday, next Saturday. And there's going to be one in Manchester the following day, Sunday. And I'm going to be giving her about 2,000 of these, and probably about 2,000 of these for Nashua. And then we have Dr. Kaufman coming in to speak in Manchester. He's an expert on the subject, a real environmental scientist. So lots of good things as a result of that one little thing we had in Nashua. We were in Belfast, Maine, October 24th. By the way, October 24th is UN Day. We'd like to celebrate it by exposing the UN. Belfast was listed as an ICLEI member. I think there was 5 in Maine. And we did a little preliminary work. We put stuff out a month beforehand, and we visited some folks. And I actually gave a presentation a week afterwards. So we got about 12 people out on lunchtime, 11 to 1 at the intersection in Belfast. We actually passed these flyers out. We had a nice 1-pager, a nice 4-color, 2-color, all throughout City Hall. An hour into the outreach, we don't call them demonstrations, by the way. We call them outreach. Here's what it is. I get a call from City Hall. They say, "You can't find City Hall?" Well, the lady said, "Oh," she said, "I saw the flyer," and my phone number was on it. And she said, "We left ICLEI a while ago. We're not members of ICLEI anymore." I said, "Well, you're still listed on their website, their international website." "Oh, we'll take care of that right away." Well, we had a reporter, in fact, we didn't even know it, but right upstairs from where we were doing our outreach was an office of the Bangor Daily News. We did do a news release a week before, a couple of days before, and put stuff on all the Facebook pages to all the liberty groups in the state too. And but he called me up. He was almost hostile, but the article he did was very fair. But he called me up after he found out that Belfast left ICLEI, And he said, well, you guys won't be coming to give you a presentation. I said, well, of course we will. Well, why would you do that? I said, this isn't just ICLI. I said, that's just one tentacle. I said, it's like you have a cancerous tumor, you can see it. I said, but then there's stuff like the rest of the body that you don't see. That's what kills you. I said, oh no, we're still going to be doing it. And then there was another reporter from an online news service, and his article said the JBS a year too late. What happens is they left ICLI in December. They didn't renew their, but nobody knew about it. So I responded to their article online, and we should do this all the time. We need to respond. You don't, make caustic remarks, and you always link information, like the videotape from YouTube or some of the material from the script or what have you. And I said, no, we weren't a year too late. The media was 2 years too late because they didn't tell anybody that Belfast joined ICLI. They never investigated ICLI, and they never told anybody when they left ICLI. And that, a lot of people say, hey, that's the right answer. So we were just there creating awareness about it. And if you go to the ICLI's website, they've taken Belfast off. To me, that was a big success story. And we've got a lot of new people involved, a lot more people involved in what we have to do. So I think we should try to do stuff like this. You look at the map, I think you've got, let's see, what do you have in Connecticut as ICLI members? You have Groton,
Windsor.
I know you have
New Haven, Stamford.
New Haven. So we should try to organize maybe 1 or 2 a month, and maybe do a little reconnaissance to find out the best location, because maybe City Town Hall could be a mile from town, like in Falmouth, Maine. You don't want to do it because it's in the middle of nowhere, but you want to find a busy intersection. You got to have at least 2 weeks in advance, because you want to do news releases and all that, and get people out. And an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's cold out, but people at Valley Forge are pretty cold too. And I think what we're facing could be worse than what they were facing. You see, they could have went home and still been good Englishmen, but we're facing something that if we lose this, we're going to lose our country. So that's how important this is. So it's not just something to do before the football game. Something that we should really commit ourselves to do. So the outreach is good as far as public awareness. And then, as I said earlier, make an effort to visit your town hall. How many people have been in their town hall? Everybody. So you know where it is. You're there to pay a fee or maybe renew a license, right? How many people are there promoting the freedom message? 1, 2, okay, not as many, but how many people are going to be going to their town halls to promote the freedom message? Yeah. Everybody, yeah, okay. Because there are town halls too. There's not just the town halls for the Nature Conservancy and for all of the other groups that promote the